In this video, we're going to talk about a major upgrade to one of my personal grails, why I paid the price I did, and we're even going to take a look inside the actual book. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
Welcome to Bry's Comics. This channel is all about comic book investment and speculation with tips on how to have this hobby fund itself. If that's something that interests you, grab that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment down below, and it'll enter you to win this month's giveaway on the YouTube channel. We do one every single month, and this month we're giving away this slab. And also, if you head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win this slab. I'm filming this a little bit in advance, and I haven't actually chosen which books to give away this month. But you'll see them there on the screen. So without further ado, I want to show you the book that we're talking about here. We'll go over why am I so absolutely obsessed with this book and all the details, and then actually look inside the book. So we're talking about Strange Tales number 111. This is the first appearance of the Asbestos Man, the second appearance of Doctor Strange, and the first appearance of Baron Mordo. And I had this 6.0 in my collection. I've always been on the hunt for a higher grade copy, like an 8.0, 8.5, but I've never seen one come up for sale. And then this one came up for sale, no surprise, right after the Doctor Strange trailer, the best time to sell Doctor Strange keys, most likely. And I found this 9.0 copy that came up for sale on Comic Connect. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to actually win this book. This book is going to sell for a crazy amount of money, record-breaking high, but I went ahead and added it to my watch list and kept an eye on it anyways. And lo and behold, I actually won it for right around the price that I was, comfortable paying. And to get into all of the details of the numbers, let's hop into the computer. All right, so here we are on Comic Connect, and as you can see, this is the actual book that I won, Strange Tales 111. I got it for $3,209 on March 17th. If we go over to GPA, I'm going to show you how I came up with that number for what was going to be my max bid. So here's my purchase, $3,209. The most recent sales data point for this grade and a 9.0 before that was 2019, and it was in August of 2019. A copy sold for $1,020. So that was the last sales data point that I had to go off to base, like, okay, what's my max bid going to be for this book? And in a situation like this, where these super high grade copies of this book just don't come up for sale that often. As you can see here, every single grade above a 9.0, except for the 9.0, which was my sale and one other this month, one hadn't come up since 2019 was the most recent. Before that, it's 2014, 2016. They just don't come up for sale that much. So in a situation like this, in trying to figure out, okay, yeah, it sold for $1,000 3 years ago, but what can I expect it to go up to this time? You can go to other grades that have sales data points at both points. And I was looking for this. You want to find one that's in March, right? Because I made the purchase in March. So you want to find one that sold in March and see if it also has a sale in 2019. But there's no other March sales besides the two 9.0s for this book. It's just such a rare book. And in fact, if we go and look at the census here, you can see there's only 469 total graded copies. That includes restored and signature series. There's only 14 in 9.0 and only 17 above that. And if you look down here, there's only 6 UK price variant versions of this book on the census. There's only 6 pence editions of Strange Tales 111. I mean, if you're going to tell me that this isn't worth more than this, I just don't know what to tell you. I did that whole video about it. I just did it. If you want to hear me ramble on about that, you go watch that video. But there's 2 loan copies at 8.0, 175, 2 5.0s, and 145, and that's it for the pence editions. There's only 6 total pence editions. I would way rather have a pence edition than a cents edition for this book. So anyways, I digress. Super rare. That was my point here. And if you come back to the 5.0, we can see that the most recent sale was in February for $775. And now we want to find a price point that is the same time away as this one. So August 18th of 2019. So we're looking for August 2019. And if we go to 2019, there's no August, but there is an October. All right. So there was a sale in October of 2019 for $140. And then the most recent sale, 775. So if you divide 775 by 140, you get 5.53. So it went up 5.53x since that last sale. So if I come back up here, I can do some math and say, okay, the last sale was 1,020, but if I times that by 5.53, which is the same price increase of a different grade of the same book for the same time periods, the number that you would come up with is 5,640. So if this went up the same amount as the 5.0 did in the same time period, a 9.0 would be worth 5,640. Now, I thought when I saw this book come up, since I've had this on my PC list for so long, I've never seen an 8.5, a 9.0, or anything above that. I thought, okay, this book is for sure going to do $4,000 or $5,000, especially since it's right after the Doctor Strange trailer. I mean, that is why the seller waited for this time to sell the book. This is the first appearance of Baron Mordo, who I believe is confirmed for the show. The second appearance of Doctor Strange. I mean, this is the opportune time to sell. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to get this book. I don't want to pay $4,000 or $5,000. I said my max bid is going to be $3,000, and then we got to 3,000. I was winning, and then someone swooped in the last minute to 3,100, and I was laying there in bed. I had 45 seconds to decide, and I thought, do I want to let this book get away from me for $100? And I said, no, I don't want this book to get away from me for $100. So I went up to 3,200, which was more than I wanted to spend. I thought, I'm probably going to lose it anyways. This little bidding war could go on all day. And to my surprise, I actually won for $3,200. Now, the crazy thing about this is that 3 days later, another copy sells for $4,800, a $1,600 price hike in 3 days. Now, that isn't surprising to me, because I thought that this $3,200 was unbelievably low for this book, especially because of the time that this was happening. And so this sale of $4,800 is way more in line with what I thought the price was actually going to be. So I'm not surprised at this number. In fact, I think fair market value should be more around 5,640, because that's the same price increase as this lower grade. Now, there is a caveat to that, and that is in high dollar books and big key issue books, the lower grade copies have higher ROI than the high grade copies. Let me repeat that. In big books, expensive books, key issue books, grails, whatnot, the low grade copies have a higher ROI than the high grade copies, which is totally counterintuitive. You would think that if this book has one copy at a 9.8, that surely the 9.8 would have the highest ROI for this book, but it's not the case. We see it almost across the board, and if you think about it, it's just supply and demand. There's only a very small handful of people that can afford a 9.8. And there is a lot more people that are desiring and after this book at these lower grades with a more reasonable entry level at like $700. So there's more copies available and there's more people hunting them. So the ROI is actually higher for the low grade copies of hot key issue books. And this is usually only true for like super rare Silver Age, super high dollar books. Just a super interesting tidbit there. I think, 4,800 makes a lot of sense. I think 5,600 makes a lot of sense. Now, here's the caveat about this, is this book is actually a CPR candidate. I mean, it's a 9.0. and there's no grader's notes. And I'm looking at this book, and to take a closer look at the book, let's hop into the other camera. So here we are. Let's take a closer look and see if this is a crack press candidate. Like I said, a 9.0 with no notes. So here we go. We have this really nice spine, very little wear. There is some wear, and I would say that it's like a delicate spine. So as you can see right there is a little bit of wear on the spine. That's right by the staple. The staples on this aren't exactly in the curvature of the spine. They're kind of recessed a little bit, which is really common. So there is some spine wear. There's not like any giant spine ticks, but there's spine wear going on. There's a little bit of wear around the corners. But the book overall is in really good condition, and a lot of this stuff, it wouldn't even be until you crack it out that you actually can see some of the defects of the book. I mean, these old cases don't have crystal clear plastic, and they've yellowed a little bit over the time. The inner wells yellow a little bit over time. So I'm still on the fence about cracking this book out or not. I think from what I can see, I mean, I can easily fix everything that happened from the inner well. I mean, it's not easy. There's still some risk involved, but just pressing that stuff should press out. but I'm a little bit worried about the unknown, about what I'm going to find on the book when I take it out of the case. I'm worried a little bit about staining. There's definitely a little bit of yellowing and tanning just from age. There's no foxing or anything as far as I can tell. I'm still on the fence about this. The risk versus reward, I don't see it getting much less than a 9.0. However, it is fragile, and if something were to go wrong with pressing, I mean, that spine just looks so fragile, and if I'm going to press it between two hot pieces of metal, I just don't know that it's worth it, especially now that I have so much equity into this book that, the most recent sale was $4,800. I'm just really happy with it in a 9.0. So I might just get it reholdered, go that route. We'll see. Time will tell. But why this book? Why am I so obsessed with Strange Tales number 111? It's one of my favorite books. And the reason is when I first came across it and I saw Asbestos Man on the cover, I thought, did they really make a villain called the Asbestos Man? How is this possible? What is the backstory of the Asbestos Man? And I went and did a little bit of research and found that, this book was written in 1963 was when it was released. And back in 1963 was before asbestos was synonymous with cancer, right? It turns out it wasn't actually really well known that it was carcinogenic until more like the 70s. Those dates are kind of fuzzy, but certainly wasn't completely synonymous like it is today with cancer. Today, when you hear asbestos, you know that it's bad, that it's not healthy, and it could cause all kinds of problems. But back in the 60s, it was synonymous with being fireproof because asbestos is fireproof. And so when they were trying to come up with a villain for the Human Torch, naturally, they came across the Asbestos Man. With my PC, I'm really specific with what I collect because if you're not careful, next thing you know, you have a warehouse full of comic books. And so I narrow it down to things that are interesting, conversation starters, covers that I absolutely love, and that have potential price value increases. So the saving grace for Asbestos Man, because Asbestos Man by itself isn't really, any kind of speculative book. He's never going to show up in the MCU. We're never going to get an Asbestos Man. But it is the second appearance of Doctor Strange and the first appearance of Baron Mordo, two characters that have a ton of potential in the MCU and for the future value of this comic. So it's just kind of the perfect storm where this is the perfect PC book for me. Action! All right, so here we are, Strange Tales number 111, and as you can see right here on the cover, it says, how can the Human Torch defend himself against the Asbestos Man? And you got the Human Torch saying, my flames don't affect the Asbestos Man. Looks like curtains for my favorite teenager, namely me. Marvel Comics Group ushers in the Marvel Age of Comics. And here we have the splash page, and there you have the Asbestos Man right there in the splash page. Plot by Stan Lee, story by H. Huntley, art by Dick Ayers, and lettering by S. Harold. And essentially, I'm not going to read every single page here. I'll let you guys pause the screen if you actually want to read each individual page. But essentially, the story is you have a criminal who wants to defeat the Human Torch, and also a scientist who's involved in the whole process. He wants to be the best criminal in the world. How can he prove that to the world? Well, he can defeat the Human Torch. How is he going to defeat the Human Torch? Well, with science and asbestos, because asbestos is fireproof. So the story is actually really cool and worth reading. I suggest that you either download this app or, because it's not like you can pick up a reader copy, which is why Marvel Comics Unlimited is so awesome for $10 a month. Not a sponsor yet, but you have access to tens of thousands of books. And here you can see him testing his solvent, which melts any type of metal, in addition to his flame retardant suit made out of super asbestos. And the story just kind of develops a little bit. And here you can see the scientist says, and how better to achieve that object than through the medium of the greatest flame resistant material, asbestos, super asbestos, chemically made from crystalline calcium and iron, my own exclusive formula. So that's how the Asbestos Man suit is formed. Unfortunately, he doesn't, and there we have this epic splash page of the Asbestos Man. And unfortunately, he's a little bit short-lived. He does, in fact, actually defeat the Human Torch. And this is the first time that the Human Torch has ever been defeated. Look how sad. And look how it's really sad. Man, that's meme-worthy right there. Somebody come up with a meme with this panel and this panel. I mean, there's just a lot of possible memes there. As you can see, the torch was beaten for the first time. I've just been handed a special bulletin a few minutes ago. The criminals caught by the torch in the jewel robbery and thought to be part of the Blackie Barker's gang while on the way to the prison were rescued by the Asbestos Man. So here's the Asbestos Man just making a name for himself in the criminal underworld, which was his intention all along. But it's short-lived because the Human Torch can't be held down for long. He creates a cage of fire that it says fire consumes oxygen, and without oxygen a man can't breathe, even an asbestos man. I'm surrounding you with fire, a cage of flame that will eat up the oxygen around you. Give up. Do you hear me? Give up. And he says, I give up. You win. So this Asbestos Man is defeated. And here's the backup story with Doctor Strange and Baron Mordo. And so we have the story by Stan Lee, the art by Steve Ditko, and the lettering by Terry Sinex. And so here's the little introduction. Men call him Doctor Strange and speak his name in whispers. But there is another, one who is still more dreaded. In this tale of the occult, you are about to meet Doctor Strange's arch foe, the dreaded Baron Mordo. So this is the second appearance of Doctor Strange. It's still so early in the mythos and the story of Doctor Strange. And I'm not going to read the whole thing here. You can pause it if you want to. But look at this. Just check out these early panels of Doctor Strange. This is his second appearance in comic books ever. Just such an awesome, historical, cool piece of comic book history. And that's it, just a short little tale. So I'm just so honored to own this piece of comic book history. I'm just tickled to death. I wanted to share this other little tidbit to show the full legacy of the Asbestos Man. This little shout out here from Fear Itself, the Homefront, issue number 6. Just like this obscure story from the Fear Itself storyline. And it's part of the backup story for this. But look at how cool this artwork is for this Fear Itself book. I remember reading this, it's been years since I read it, and I think I might have to go back and read this Fear Itself. But it's just this last little backup story here that says, Fear and self-loathing in Wisconsin. And here we have the Great Lakes Avengers. Here we have the Asbestos Man. And it says, meanwhile, inside that very market, the cashier saying, no, stay back, I'll do whatever you say. And he says, yes, tremble in fear before the might of the mighty Asbestos Man, the man of asbestos. Please ignore my oxygen tank. I'm a cancer survivor. It's just so crazy that they just thought, like, let's retcon it. Because obviously they thought it was as ridiculous as I do, which just confirms why it's so cool. You know, this is even cooler that they're confirming it and saying, like, yeah, we can't believe we did the Asbestos Man either. It just was just too cool of a story to be that one and done. And also Paste Pot Pete, which you'll see here in a second, there's a reference to Paste Pot Pete. And so here he has a flashback of him battling the Human Torch, and he says, I see my reputation for super asbestos and defeating the human Torch makes you tremble in fear. And she says, no, that's not it. And he says, oh, well then it's because I'm one of the dreaded hammer wielders. Gaze upon my mystic hammer and shudder. He's all old with his oxygen tank. And she says, no, that's not it either. And she says, I'm scared because you're covered in air poison. You're a walking cancer factory. And he goes, oh yeah, excuse me just a minute. And he walks outside and he like just squeaks his way outside. He's totally embarrassed. And here he is, just completely destroyed because his legacy of becoming a powerful villain is just, you know, still vanquished and destroyed. And the Great Lakes Avengers finally agree, hey, we will actually consider you one of the villains, we'll make you feel better. And he goes, it's a deal. You can even have my helmet for your Hall of Trophies. And they said, no, that's okay. Appreciate the offer. You can keep it. There you see him. Everybody's scared of him because he's so carcinogenic. In Fantastic Four #1, the 5th series from 2014, we get another reference and shout out in this one little panel here, where this guy is talking to the Human Torch and he says, "You can play hero, that's part of your appeal. Fight Paste Pot Pete and Asbestos Man, all good." And Human Torch says, "Showing your age, old man. Pete calls himself the Trapster now, and the other guy's dead, but I get your point." So there we have it. Asbestos Man is dead. We can only assume because he's a walking carcinogenic. Just an awesome retcon and wrap up and shout out to the original. Just really enjoyed this little bit. Thank you as always for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, all that, and you're entered to win this month's giveaway for a free slab. And sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com and you're entered to win a free slab every single month over there as well. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end, and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.
Bryce Comics.